On TV. I've asked Councilman Beck to give us an opening prayer.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're very thankful for the opportunity to be here this evening, and we pray that Thy Spirit will be with us, and we pray that Thou would continue to watch over our community, our first responders and police department. We're thankful for the service-oriented people we have here in Spanish Fork, and we pray that we will continue to watch out for one another and be good to one another and be kind. And we pray that as a council and mayor, we will make the best decisions possible tonight and moving forward. And we thank Thee for the abundant blessings we are willing to have. And we acknowledge Thy hand in all things and pray that Thou would bless those in need of Thy extra care and blessings at this time. And we say this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I've asked Councilman Hall to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The audience, please rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, let's go into public comments. Anyone that's here that'd like to address the mayor and the council other than our truth and taxation, we'll have a special meeting for that. So if you'll hold off on that, but anyone that'd like to come and address the mayor and council, you're sure welcome. Seeing none, we'll go to council comments, but before we start, I would just like to start. Last week, we lost a great citizen of our community. Dave Acosta died in a mountain bike accident. If anyone knew Dave, you know he'll leave a big hole. He was a tremendous individual, touched a lot of people's lives. I say he's one of my personal best friends, but anybody that met Dave and spent any time with Dave would walk away and say the same thing. He was my best friend. He was just that type of an individual. And so I just wanted to pay tribute to him at this time. He is very special in my family. He took my son under his wing and helped him out a lot and took a real interest in him like he did a lot of people. He helped the community out, helped a lot of self-defense with women, and he was a motivational speaker and just one all-around great guy. Coached in our youth program, and I just wanted to reach out and tell the family how sorry we are, but what an honor to be able to know Dave and to associate with him and just want to celebrate his life at this time. Okay, we're going to do council comments. Councilman Gordon.
Thank you, Mayor. I would also like to send my condolences out to the Costa family and appreciated you reaching out to us. Seth had let us know there was an accident, and then as soon as I saw your phone call, I was mowing the lawn and my heart sunk because I knew what that phone call was all about. And so just thoughts and prayers go out to that family at this time. And again, like you said, will be truly missed in our community. Things to report, the Water Quality Board meeting. We held a special meeting to fund a special project from the state level, and nothing short. It was just a short, quick meeting on that. And then garbage, that we continue to see an uptick in garbage at the transfer station, which is interesting because it makes it difficult for us as we continue to plan for the new transfer station. We know the reason that we're seeing large amounts of garbage at the transfer station is because everyone is cleaning up during the COVID-19 crisis. Our big train trucks that have the 2 trailers behind the semi have taken an extra 976 trips out from our transfer station to the Bayview landfill. And if you think about that, it's just amazing how much of an influx they're experiencing. And so our hats off to all those workers out there that are helping take care of our garbage. It's one of the utilities that we don't always think about, but and starting a new fiscal year there, and happy to report that all the budget items and everything are in place. And other than that, Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of reports that I have. The Chamber of Commerce off and running as of last Saturday with the farmers market in town, right there, downtown Center Street and Main Street. If you aren't doing anything on a Saturday, or even if you are, make some time to make it down to the farmers market. I love how our community doesn't just talk agricultural in a buzzword, but it puts it into action. And so all those folks that are down there bringing you fresh produce, and also making it possible for less fortunate to get access to fresh food, is just something to behold. So I love going down there. Please come down and walk around and see all your friends and neighbors who are enjoying the farmers market. I see our president of the chamber here. Is there anything else that you need to add to that? No? All right, okay. Yeah, every Saturday, come down to Center Street and Main Street and take part in the farmers market. It's truly something that we all have a good time together with, and get to leave with some really good food. So other than that, Mayor, just again, a shout out to everyone that makes Fiesta Days happen. This is our meeting after Fiesta Days, and it's just, again, an amazing thing to see all that comes together to pull that off, especially, in a pandemic. I'm hoping that that's the last time we ever talk about pulling that off in a pandemic. But we did it again first class, like we do in Spanish Fork, the rodeo, and all the other events that I'm sure Councilmember Beck will talk about. Was enjoyable to my family, and I know the rest of the citizens that could participate in even an adjusted way this year. Again, grateful. I could read you some pretty poignant messages from Jenny Taylor, who was able to come down and be honored as a Gold Star wife in our Fiesta Days rodeo. Her husband, Brent Taylor, killed in action. I know Councilman Scopes knew him well as well, but was able to get to know Brent and just the public servant that he was, but also the man that he was, and the hole that he left when he was killed in action. But Jenny wanted me to make sure to pass on my thanks to the city, to everyone that made that night possible, to connect her with the son of a sitting president, but also so many other people, and have that event to honor her, and not only her late husband, but her and her service that she continues to provide to the state of Utah, to military families across this great state. Is really something amazing, and I count it lucky that we were able to make that come together for her in Spanish Fork as a former Don herself, and she carries a great love for this city, this community. She expressed that to the mayor, to Councilman Gordon as well that night, and we're just grateful that she could come down and receive that well-deserved honor. We hope to have her down again soon and make that happen as many times as possible. So thank you, Dale. Thanks to everybody in the city. That a Herculean effort to make sure that came off the way it did. Thank you to citizens to come out and enjoy a night, a few nights with your family, and really feel of the American experiment that was the rodeo and Fiesta Days and Pioneer Days in the state of Utah. Other than that, have some meetings coming up with the League of Cities and Towns this upcoming week. Mayor, I'll report on those next council meeting. But just suffice it to say that we're always in talks with the state, with lawmakers, of how to make sure that your rights and your privileges are kept kept in a good and productive way here in the state of Utah. That's all I have, Mayor.
Great. Before I move on, we'd like to excuse Councilman Argal. He is not feeling good tonight, so he asked to be excused. So I just wanted to make that note that that's why he's not here tonight. Councilman Scobes.
Mayor, just a couple of things to report on. We have the FY21 contribution invoice from the Utah Lake Commission. About $5,900 is our portion of that. That goes into the different projects that they have, everything from algae bloom to promoting recreation and things on the lake, other projects as well. So we have that and received that, and that's going through. Our next meeting is in September, so it'll be a while to report anything other than that. The animal shelter, they're looking at reimbursements, COVID expenses. I've directed them with Tyler and be able to work through that. Appreciate the Veterans Committee, Veterans Council. We didn't have a flag retirement ceremony this year, but they had set up crosses and flags and had support and help from the community, and just wonderful to be able to see that this time of year. Again, Fiesta Days was very different than any other year, but it still had a lot of the same meaningful parts and pieces. And then with that, just a statement of appreciation. I was speaking with a number of citizens, but there was one young mother that I had the opportunity. She had found me one night at the rodeo and expressed her gratitude for having the rodeo. She said that, and I'm paraphrasing, but she said that it gave her an opportunity to forget about the worries and stresses for about 4 hours. Her kids enjoyed it. They were able to sit together with other extended family members and not have to think about all the crazy things that are going on in our country and in the world, everything from pandemics to protests to financial stresses and things. And she just was very, very grateful to be able to have that block of time to not have to worry about anything and just enjoy an old-fashioned rodeo. There were other comments very similar from other citizens that I was able to visit with, but that one in particular just kind of tugged at the heartstrings. You know, a young mother stressed about raising her children in this type of world and environment, and just really neat. I know for myself and my family, we certainly enjoyed having that break as well. And as I'm sure will be mentioned, just appreciate all those volunteers and everyone who went above and beyond to make sure that took place. That's all I have, Mayor.
Council member Beck.
Thank you. You both said great things, so I'll just kind of piggyback on what you both said. I too received several messages through the week of Fiesta Days, texts or on social media, of people thanking us and staff and the rodeo committee for having the rodeo specifically. And it went smoothly, it went really well, so thank you, Dale, Mayor, Seth, all those on the rodeo committee. And we got a lot of compliments with our volunteers. We had a lot of volunteers down here that we haven't had to have before, screening people, taking temperatures, getting people where they needed to be. And those volunteers were saying how smoothly it ran. And so in all different aspects, it went really well. I just want to give a shout out to all of the committee members and chairs that were trying to get their events to happen. Some fell through, some happened, and it was all a lot of work either way. So thank you there. And also the Youth City Council and Miss Spanish Fork, though there were fewer events this year, they were still at everything. They were at the rodeo. Miss Spanish Fork was here every night, and then the Youth City Council was also here handing out bandanas. They were at Frozen. Youth were scrubbing down seats and doors and everything every night after the play there. And then at the baby contest, the Miss Spanish Fork and their mothers were there judging, and then Youth City Council helped set up and take down. So there were a lot fewer things for them to be involved in, but they were happy to have things to help with, and we're just grateful. It's always sad to have it over, but we're looking forward to having a fantastic event next year, and that's all I have.
Just touching on the rodeo again, we had the PRCA chairman and his vice chair come to our rodeo, which is a great honor. Normally there's about 600 rodeos in the rodeo season. It's cut back to less than 300. But to have him come and see how we do it, he was here for 2 nights, and he just expressed a lot of gratitude and thought we ran a first-rate operation here with everyone. And so I go along with everybody else. Thank you. Thank you for all the Diamond Fork Riding Club members, all the volunteers, and the rodeo committee. We had a lot of people came and enjoyed that event. We also had General Burton came, who is on the government's task force for this, and he wanted to see how we operated our rodeo so that they might use what they learned through our rodeo to have other events in the state. And he was very pleased with the way we ran it, had our plan, was trying to make everybody safe, and I think it turned out really well. And so we're glad we had that, and thank you, the community, for coming out and supporting it. So that was good. All right, consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay. New business. Maple Park Estates amended preliminary plat.
Testing, maybe. Change is pretty simple. This project was approved several years ago with 95 lots with the idea that Arrive Homes was going to be able to purchase about 2 acres from the Union Pacific Railroad. That would have been located on the southeast corner of the project, but it now appears as they're getting towards the end of the project that they're not going to be able to purchase that property from Union Pacific. So the change is simply to amend the original approval to leave that land out of the development. It'll sit there maybe for a really long time until Union Pacific wants to do something different with it. It causes the lot count to go from 95 to 92, but really doesn't change the nature of the development at all.
Okay, any questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve the amended preliminary plat for Maple Park Estates.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Scobes, a second by Councilman Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 800 East, 800 North intersection GMP. I'm sure you'll tell them what GMP is.
Guaranteed maximum price.
There you go.
So what you have before you is a guaranteed maximum price from Kenny Singh Construction for $1,644,865.25. And this is to turn 800 East and 800 North into a high T signalized intersection. We've been working on this for years. It's a MAG project with MAG funding. Our portion 6.77% of the total project, including the land right away and this construction cost and the design. So, I don't know if you have any questions, but it's
What is our portion?
164,835.
it's about 165,000 is our max out of pocket. So.
Right, any questions, Jared? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the guaranteed maximum price for the 800 North, 800 East intersection.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon,
Second.
Second by Councilman Scopes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Hey,
so.
Mayor, just really fast, Jared, we've had a couple of construction projects now, top of Center Street, 8th, 8th North and Highway 51, this 8th East and, or sorry, 4th, thank you, 4th and Highway 51, 8th and 8th. What's been the bidding climate like, and what's been the experience that you've had in these couple of projects, most recent ones? And maybe compare versus the ones that we've had the last. I think it'd be good for the council to know that.
Yeah, the pricing's coming down. The competition's getting better and the pricing's coming down. In fact, 800 North, 800 East is not well below, it is below our engineer's estimate. The 400 North, both projects, 400 North roundabout and the 800 North have come down in cost. I mean, drastically, but it's leveling out. It's definitely getting more competition, better pricing.
So whereas in the recent history, even the last 5 or 6 years, we've typically been hitting our engineers' estimates, if not over, and we've been better the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, people are getting hungry for work. Before, we'd get 2 or 3 bids, maybe 5 at the most, on 800. Now we're getting 7, 8, 9, 10 people interested in jobs. So,
Is there some seasonality into that?
I think people are looking for work in the future. They're getting antsy trying to gobble it all up. So,
Good.
we are doing the construction will start tomorrow. This is a CMGC, so it's a new way of how we're bidding the project. So we've had the contractor on board for 2 months now. I think that's bringing the pricing down. We're actually working with the contractors through the design, getting the pricing down and getting a guaranteed maximum price. They feel confident that they're going to make money and they don't have to put a lot of inflation into their costs of unknowns. So
It's good.
no
Helps,
more change orders.
Yeah. Love it when we're saving money.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
good. All right, we had to vote on that, right? We already
I
voted
think
on
we voted on it already.
Okay.
yeah,
it. Okay.
But what a great intersection for our city. I mean, I know that's a lot of people going to that intersection in our community, and that's gonna be awesome for that to be improved.
Definitely.
I had one resident express frustration to us that that intersection was kind of wonky, they said, because you've got the 8th and 8th, and then you have Highway 6 that's on a diagonal, and I explained to them that they said at some point that was really poor planning on the city's part to have that intersection so close to Highway 6. And I reminded them that intersection was there long before Highway 6 was there, and that when you have a grid, you know, how streets built on square, and then you have a diagonal highway that runs through it, eventually you have some of those wonky intersections. And so this is a great project that will solve some challenges that we've had for the last long while, which keep getting worse and worse as the community grows. But this won't solve all of the problems, but it will create some solutions and some relief there.
And just on that same note, I know I received a lot of emails on our road project up the top of Center Street, and I got a lot of people saying, well, how stupid are you? You know, they've made these cones, it's hard to get through. Well, that's part of construction, you know. You gotta do certain things to get something done, and now if you drive up there now, you know, I haven't received one bad email at all about how great it is, you know. So just be patient, you know. These contractors are doing the best they can, and they'll try to get that traffic moved through those the quickest they can and get that project built. Now, if they wanted to shut it all down and just go in and do it, they could do that, but we told them they got to keep a lane open and keep people moving through there, so that's what they're doing. So, all right, number 8, discussion has been postponed, and we have no closed session, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn and go into special truth and taxation city council meeting.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now we are in our truth and taxation meeting. Who's going to start? Kent?
I'll talk to the council this way. So with the 2021 budget, there's a need, if there was a, oh, okay, good, got it. There's a need for if we're going to change the property tax rate higher than the certified tax rate that the state gives us, then there's a need for a public hearing. And that public hearing is tonight. Along with that, after this public hearing, then the city will adopt the 2021 budget. So those two events will take place in this meeting, and those are the only two items on the agenda for this meeting. So this, the budget started last spring. We had public hearings last spring about the budget, and because of the property tax rate, then we go through what the state has for the property tax rate, the requirements for that. So tonight we're going to discuss a little bit about property tax, and I'm going to try to simplify it enough so everybody has the opportunity to understand what we're doing. On a piece of real estate you pay property tax on. There are multiple taxing entities that receive your property tax dollar that you pay. This is a pie chart that shows on an individual house or business that pays property tax where your slice of the pie gets divided up to. And the school district right now, the rates that have been established right now would be getting 75% of your property tax, while the city would be getting 11%. So the property tax increase that we're talking about tonight is just, let's see, almost works there. This section of the pie that we're contemplating increasing the property tax on. 3 years ago, we started this the plan when there was a need for a new fire station. The plan was that we would increase the property tax rate by holding the rate. So that term called holding the rate, I'm going to come back to. And there's also raising the rate. The city council decided 3 years ago, 2 years ago in tax time, to hold the rate to raise enough money so we can build a new fire station. And at the same time, there was a need discussed with the council about getting a new library. And so the first year was just the fire station. Last year, it was the fire station for a second year, and the first year for an increase for the library. Over the past several years, you'll see that property tax rates on this chart shows back in 2013, we held the rate right here, and it collected $21,000. For the next 4 years, we didn't hold the rate, and we let the rate decline. You can see the number from, and we use the term mills, but 1112, I'll look at it this way, 1120, 1121, down to 10.9, 10.3, it dropped to 9.55, so if you can see this right here. So in those years, the property tax rate fell during those years. And the reason why it falls is the state legislature guarantees X amount of dollars would be what the city gets. And we're guaranteed that. And in the equation is your value times the rate gives you the dollars. Now, if your value goes up, which the city doesn't control, the assessor's office does, if your value goes up, in order to get those same dollars, it forces mathematically the rate to go down. And so that's what causes each one of these rate decreases, is as the value in the home goes up, it forces the rate to go down. So the term hold the rate means if we hold the rate to the last, what the last certified tax rate and approved rate is, if we hold that rate, it would guarantee an increase in property tax revenue based on, because the values are going up. So as you look at this right here, this, we held the rate here. It could have fell to 8.86, but we held the rate in 2018 at 9.55. The next year, we not only held the rate at 9.55, but we increased it a little bit last year. So we not only held the rate, but we increased it just a little bit so we could capture for the library. Now I'm going to go away. This is a lot of numbers. I'm going to be a little bit more graphic and show what this means. So we're going to walk through, you'll see some of these same numbers. So in the terms of mills, we're going to use the term of 991, okay? As far as it looks like 991, but in mills, it's a decimal that's way out there. And the city's rate's low, so it has a lot of decimal zeros in it. So last year, the certified rate and approved rate that came was 991. This year, because the values have increased, we have the potential to have the certified tax rate fall again, and this year it would fall by, I'm going to say 45 mills, if you can see that number. So it would drop from 991 down to 946. So in our plan, we were planning to hold the rate for the fire station and increase that each time over that amount. And we were under the need of capturing a certain amount of revenue for the library also. So there's two capital projects that we're strategizing with the property tax in order to capture some property tax revenue to have the extended service in the fire department and extended service in the library. Okay, so this shows that there was 45 mills that we could capture by holding the rate. The fire station, for its third and final year of capturing, we estimated we needed $150,000 each year. Well, the 45 mills does not capture enough to get the 150,000. So it would have to raise a small amount of the 8 mills in order to capture up to get that 150. So this is the scenario painted for the fire station, meaning to hold the rate for the 45 and to raise the property tax the .00008 in order to capture the $150,000. That's the fire station. So if you looked at what the impact, now we're just talking fire station, not library this time. So if you looked at the impact of raising the 45 mills annually on a home that has a value of $314,000. The county has told us that's what the average market price for a home in Spanish Fork is, reduced by 45% to a taxable value of $172. So if you want to find out what your taxable value is, you reduce it by 45%. It's only taxed on the 55%. So the impact of raising that would be an impact annually on an average home of $1.38 or a monthly rate of 12 cents for the raise. To hold the rate, it would be $7.77 or 65 cents. And so the impact are those two items annually and monthly for the fire station. So proposed with this property tax increase, it would be for the fire station to hold the rate, to capture that much, and to raise the rate by that small amount. Okay, so that's the fire station. Now with the library, we've already established, if we're raising it to this point, the library, we had planned that we were going to raise it over the next 2 years, but the way the bonding is going with our financial advisors, we'll be issuing bonds next spring for the library and begin construction next June. So in that bonding process, it would favor the city to have the revenue streams already established and committed instead of saying, okay, we're doing a part now and then maybe one will get done next year, and the bondholders don't like necessarily the maybes when you get your bond rating. And so it's proposed that we will do a increase of the 251 mills in order to capture $43 annually or $3.61 monthly for the library. And so if you add those things all together, the increase, which would be, and the truth and taxation notice, goes from where the rate would have fallen to And so we have to advertise all of the increases, anything above that rate that it fell to. So anything above the 946, we would have to do a truth and taxation hearing, advertise, and have that increase. So in order to capture enough for the bond, this is the amount for the library in a raise the rate, a little bit for the fire station, raise the rate, and then to hold the rate would be the other part. So the bottom line is $52 annually increase, which would work out to be about a $4.38 increase per month. And with that would be the funding for a new fire station and for a new library. Okay, this lists out a little bit more as far as what the amount that will be collected on each one of those and the impact that each one of those would have. So what is needed to project it forward for a bond payment for the library. The fire station will not have a bond payment, but the library will have a bond payment. Okay, and this is just the same summary, just hopefully it paints enough a picture to you as far as we are having a property tax increase or proposing a property tax increase for the council to decide. So in summary, for the fire station, this is the third year of the plan. This year it raised at 77 cents per month on an average home. If your home is more than the average, then it would be proportionally a little bit more than that. If your home is less than that, it would be proportionally less than that amount. Now for the library, that 3-year plan, this would have been the second year, but now we're proposing to do year 2 and year 3 would be a $3.61 monthly increase on the average home. This slide shows where we would fall in the property tax line with other cities around us. And last year, we were at the bottom. So you can see where we were at 991 last year. And if the certified rate, if we let the rate fall again, we would be even lower than everybody else in there. So these are the new rates that have already, if they didn't do a property tax increase, their rate fell also. So if you look at Payson fell just a little bit. You know, if they didn't have a property tax increase this year, they more than likely, their rate fell just a little bit. These are the new rates. And so where do we fall in that now as we're proposed to raise it to $12.50? We would be slightly above these property tax rates, but still substantially below some of these others up here. Okay, and since we have sister cities, we would be slightly higher than Payson, but we would be $62 a year less than Springville. This is the same summary. The average home price and the property tax on their bill went from about a $163 to a $215. That's the $52. And that's all that I have. Mayor, I'm ready to answer any questions or continue.
Does anybody have any questions for Kent? We might. We reserve the right to have.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For those in the public who don't know me, I'm Scott Aylett. I'm the Library Director for Spanish Fork City, and I'm excited to be here tonight to talk to you a little bit about the plan for the new library and provide a little bit of context, not only for you who have been involved kind of throughout the process, but also for the public. Get them a little bit up to speed as to what our existing level of service is like right now at the library and what we anticipate with a new library. And kind of start off, I think it's important for us to remember and refresh our memory regarding kind of the purpose of a public library, especially the library here in Spanish Fork. First and foremost, it's a place where we hope to foster literacy, education, entertainment, development, and discovery among all age groups and demographics within the community. It really is an area and a place for us to help connect our residents with one another. I've heard countless stories from my staff of moms who bring their kids to story time, who sit next to each other week after week at story time, and they build relationships and friendships that last and extend beyond the walls of the library. We also have opportunities for individuals with similar interests to come and meet and get to know one another and create a greater sense of community within this great community. And lastly, it's a place that's safe for people to be. Surprisingly, school gets out and we get not right now because of COVID obviously, but in a typical year, school gets out and we get kind of a rush of school-aged kids that come to the library to be with their friends, to study, to do homework, to read, to be together. And it's a safe place for them to do that. And it's a safe place for other residents in the community, regardless of their age, to come and to study and to work and to fulfill some of those purposes that we outlined above. A little bit of context on our existing library. It was built in 1965. I wasn't even a thought in 1965. But our population then was about 6,800, and we had about 1,900 households, and the library initially was about 6,000 square feet. Fast forward over 30 years to the mid to late 90s, and the city renovated the library and added an additional 6,000 square feet by opening up the basement, essentially doubling the total space of the library in a time when our population was about 16, almost 17,000. Now let's fast forward again another 20 years or so, and boy have we grown in the last 22 years. How much have we grown in the last 10 years? It's incredible how much we've grown as a community, and now we're pushing 40,000 plus residents, and we continue to grow. Yet we're still at about that 12,000 square feet in our building. This chart here gives a little bit of context as to how big the library is in terms of space per capita. So when we opened up, and maybe you see my little cursor here, when the library first opened in 1965, there was about 0.88 square feet per capita. We fast forward to the late 1990s and we're down to about 1/3 of a foot per capita. We double that the next year. We kind of get down here to where we are in 2020. We're at about 1/4 of a foot per capita. With the proposed plan for the new library, we would more than double our space on a per capita level, and that would be a significant and a sufficient amount of space for this library moving forward as we continue to grow as a community. So we talked a little bit about space. And that certainly is the biggest deficiency that we see right now at the library. The biggest obstacle that we face in improving and increasing the level of service for our patrons and fulfilling those purposes is space. One large component of the library is our programming, not only for children, but also for teens and adults. We currently have one program room, the capacity of which isn't that great. And with only one program room, let's say you've got story time going. Well, you can't have any other program. Well, you can. Sometimes we'll do a secondary or an additional program at the same time, but it's out in the middle of the book stacks. And so that's the best way that we can have simultaneous programs so mom can bring kids of multiple ages and send them to different programs. Likewise, a really popular program that we've done the last couple years is a Harry Potter escape room, and we get waiting lists and people just calling, hoping and begging to get into the Harry Potter escape room. Well, when we've got that going for 2 to 3 weeks, that program room is occupied and we can't do any other programs, no story times, no adult programs, nothing, because it's occupied by that one program. Likewise, in terms of space, our physical collection is pretty much maxed out. We surprisingly hold about 70,000 physical items in that library, and it's been that way for a while. Now, it fluctuates a little bit up and down, but we just don't have the space to expand our physical collection. And storage is an issue as well, as we have various items that we store for seasonal purposes and whatnot. We just don't have good amount of space to store those items. We'll get a little bit back into the space here in a little bit, but another big deficiency that we face that we hear a lot from our residents is the lack of parking and book drop-off. So for those of you who are familiar with the library, it's on that block of Main Street and Center Street right adjacent to City Park. And all of the parking is street side parking around that entire block. Now you can imagine if you're a mom that's got a few kids in tow and you need to drop off a few books, it can be kind of burdensome trying to find a parking spot, get all the kids out of the car, haul them up to the front just to drop off a couple books. Or if you're lucky enough, you've got a kid that's willing to get out of the car and run them up to the front door for you. But that may not always be the case, and then you get cases of inclement weather. But regardless, this is a common area of complaint and frustration that we hear both from staff as well as from our patrons. So, as this has been an issue, Council and Mayor, that you've discussed and thought of for several years, as well as staff, beginning of this year, we did a resident survey that we sent out to all of our residents, and we got a really good response, a very statistically significant and sound response from our residents, of over 800 responses from the community. And we asked them about all the different city services: Public Works, Community Development, Parks and Rec, the library, Public Safety. And I thought this was the best way to really visualize a lot of the feedback that we got from our residents regarding the library. A lot of it was really positive. But I took all of the qualitative or the responses that people type in and threw them in a word cloud. And here you can see the words that are most repeated in those responses. Now, library is obvious because it's about the library, but I find it very interesting that this word cloud that's random in its placement put very and small right next to each other. And those are two complaints that we hear a lot about, that the library is very small. You see selection up there: new, old, update, more. A lot of these words that we hear from our public and from our patrons, that we need a larger collection size. You just don't have the books that I'm wanting, or you don't have enough space to accommodate our programs that I'd like to bring my kids to. Likewise, last November, as part of the design process for the library, we had a special open house at the library where we had different design boards up, and residents could come put stickers on pictures of libraries that they liked. They could fill out a survey and talk about components of the library that they're interested in. And in that one evening, we had over 200 residents come to that event and give us their feedback. We followed that up with an additional survey that we put out online with all the same questions, and got an additional nearly 200 responses online from residents. And one thing that we asked them was, well, what is it that brings you to the library? And I apologize, the font on this is really small. But that number one item that's listed there, nearly 100% of people that participated in this survey said, I come to the library because I want books and I want other reference material. You move down, people talk about they come to the library for movies or audiobooks. And then we move into the programs. About 50% of our participants said, I come to the library specifically because I'm coming for a program either for myself or for my children. So to give a little bit of context regarding the amount of service that we provide to the community, this is a little snapshot at what 2019 was like for the library. In 2019, we had almost 230,000 people come in and out of the library over that year. That's about 28 times a month per patron, or 28 times per year, or about 2 times per month for our patrons. What for me is just staggering and incredible to see is the number of physical books that come in and out of the library. Almost 380,000 items get checked in and out of the library every year. Now, granted, that's not individual items. The same item gets checked out. But that's almost 990 items a day. And even during COVID, we've had days where we've checked out upwards of 1,500 items in one day. People coming in and checking items out. It's crazy. It's awesome. I love it. Now, one thing that we hear a lot about is, well, we're going digital. So many people are listening to audiobooks these days, or reading books on their phone, which is true, and we have grown our digital collection tremendously over the last 10 years, even 5 years. We've got about 100,000 items that are digital in our collection, but digital items only make up 16% of everything that's checked out. So of everything that goes out of the library, 84% of that is a physical book that someone comes in and picks up. Now programs, again, I talked a lot about how programs are big for the library. It brings people in, it connects them. They check out books while they're there. Over the last 5 years, we've added an additional 20 programs each year. So we have on average about 565 programs annually. For the kids programs, we have about 43 kids that come to each children's program. Now, in that tight program space, that gets pretty tight. You get 43 kids, and then you throw 43 moms or dads on top of that, or grandmas or grandpas. It's a pretty tight space. And all in all, in the year 2019, we had just over 21,000 program attendees at the library. Now, 2020 has been a very different year, I think, for everybody, not only for the library. I'm sure it's been different for Parks and Rec. I'm sure it's been, obviously, for a lot of businesses out there, and it's certainly not different for the library in terms of it has been different, but we're like everybody else. It's been a different year. This chart here shows kind of a comparison between our circulation in red for 2018, pink is 2019, and the dark gray is 2020. We started out about 5% higher in terms of circulation of physical items in 2020 than we were in 2019. So January, February, we were having a great year. March hit and we closed the doors on March 16th, so we were open about half of the month, but we still circulated about 60%, almost 70% of what we had circulated the year before in just half a month. Now we had, I can't remember the exact number, but I think on that March 15th, I think we circulated almost 2,500, 3,000 items in one day, a big rush of people coming in to check out items. But anyway, we reopened the library with limited hours in May, and you can kind of see that gray bar slowly creep up. In June, we reopened the basement for children's collection. Our number got back up in June. In July, we're pretty close to where we were in June. August, we've reopened the library on Saturdays, so we're excited and we anticipate and we're anxious to see what our circulation numbers are like for physical items now that we're open on Saturdays. One thing that I find really interesting as I've looked at the numbers is, while we're only open about less than 50% of what our normal hours are in a typical year, we're circulating about 70% of what we did in a normal year. So we're open half the time, but we're circulating 70% of what we typically do. So if we were open full time, where would we be in our circulation? It just goes to show that even though COVID has had a significant impact in our community in a lot of different ways, people are still using the library, and they're using it a lot. Digital circulation has certainly gone up during COVID. We've seen a huge spike. One thing that we did this year is we've allowed residents to apply for library cards online so that they could immediately access digital content without having to come into the library to pick up a library card. We've had about 168 residents take advantage of that since April, and our digital circulation is doing phenomenal. Here's just a summary of where we are for total circulation. Again, we're at about 70% of what we do in a typical year, but again, we're only open for about 50% of the time. So this evening, Mayor and Council, as you review and analyze and consider the proposal before you, I'm certain many of you, if not all of you, as Spanish Fork residents born and raised in many cases, have fond memories coming to the library, either as a child or as a parent or maybe now as a grandparent. And I think that's a common theme and feel and message that I hear from patrons and from our staff, is that the library has a special place within our community. It's a place where people come to learn. It's a place where kids come to meet other kids and make those connections, and families make connections. It's a place where we can foster early literacy and get kids off on the right foot. And it's a safe place for our residents to come and learn and grow and be with one another and build that sense of community. So I certainly hope and expect that you would consider those this evening as we analyze and review the proposal before you for a new library. And thank you so much for your time, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. In fact, I used that a lot in high school. I didn't even know they had books when I went to the library.
I was gonna say, probably one of you didn't grow up.
It was
doing
just
a whole
there to
lot
go meet girls, so it was awesome.
All right, just to maybe tie up a couple of loose ends as far as some information, and then our kind of presentation will be done. We'll start first with the fire station, ambulance station. We actually call it Station 62. Kent talked about this where we've held the rate and are considering for the last 2 years, and we're considering holding the rate again tonight for Station 62. This is to house our ambulance and fire personnel on the east end of town. The building that you see on the image before you, it's pretty much looks like that. It's a little bit further along even than from this image. The landscaping is in that front, and I think those garage doors are now in on that particular image. That's looking from the back. We held the rate in 2018. We held the rate in 2019. In 2018, I think that generated about $150,000. And then 2019, about $150,000 again. Today, holding the rate would generate about $128,000. All told, that will provide about $420,000 of additional revenue that we will use once this building is constructed to staff it and operate it more fully. Many of our residents still believe that we have a volunteer ambulance service, and that's actually incorrect. We stopped having a volunteer service probably 6 or 7 years ago. I'm shooting from the hip on that number, Steve, so if I'm off there, but I think we're pretty close in that number. Today we have ambulance personnel at our station on Main Street all day long from 7 a.m. until midnight. That covers a very great share of all calls, probably maybe 80-85% of all calls for ambulance. And our ambulance calls to fire calls run about 4-to-1 or 5-to-1. And so we do have still a volunteer fire department. The fire department runs very rarely in comparison to the ambulance department. When this station opens up within a few weeks of taking it over, we will have individuals at this station, again from 7 a.m. until until about midnight, right? This will increase the level of service for all residents in Spanish Fork. Today, when an ambulance is called, we have one on, and that is good. Just about every day, we need a second ambulance. And so when that ambulance gets called, the second ambulance kind of marshals from wherever they might be, and they are on call, and so they know that they will get called. But they marshal from wherever they are, and they go to the station. And tomorrow, or in a couple of months when the station's open, actually not a couple of months, I think it's next month, isn't it? Yeah, we're going to take it over here in about a month. We will actually have both ambulances on at all times there. When we have them in the station, they'll be in both stations. And that'll be a great service to the residents. Today, if you live on the east bench of town, the ambulance is responding from Main Street, which is the drive time from the station to your home, maybe 6, 7, 8 minutes, depending on where you live. And that's just a function of the location. This will decrease response times by about 4 minutes to some areas, by 6 or 7 minutes to some areas, depending on how close you might live to that particular station. So it's a great evolution and addition to our community, and certainly raises the service level for all residents. I think it's important to note, and I believe you'll remember this, Mayor and Council, that the construction of the Station 62, the building itself is about $5.8 million to construct. And so what we've collected from the property taxes really didn't build it, but is mostly for the operation, ongoing operation of this station with the increased level of service and costs associated with having employees there. I think that's probably all I want to say on the fire station. On Station 62, sorry. We commonly refer to it as station, or as a fire station. But I think it's probably very important to note that we've named it Station 62. And for those of you in the room or watching at home, I know there are millions watching at home. Station 62 doesn't mean that we have 62 of these, but in the nomenclature of Spanish Fork and emergencies, Utah County, we are the 6th jurisdiction in their number order. Utah County is 1, Provo is 2, Orem is 3, Lehigh is 4, Springville is 4? Seriously, all right, Springville's 4, Lehigh is 5, and we are 6. I was gonna flip those around. So we're just 6J, so Chief's number is 6J1. I'm 6J007. That's me.
Nice try.
But so Station 62 really just says that's our second station. When an ambulance is called, the first one that goes out, it's known as Ambulance 61. The second one that goes out is Ambulance 62. If a rescue truck goes out, it's Rescue 61, etc. You get the point. So that's where Station 62 comes from. I wanted to show this timeline. This is it the white button or the top button? The top. All right. The timeline that I'm showing here, I actually showed last year in our council meeting. And it was, I think, a really instructive slide to show back then to show us what the timetable of things are. And a year later, I am actually pleased to share that it's really pretty accurate still today. So that's great. So we had a truth and taxation hearing last year to have a very similar discussion as we're having today. As Kent discussed, we have done things on a sequential pattern and very methodically doing just a little bit at a time so the burden wasn't too great in any given year. We expected to have the fire Station 62 under construction by October, and it was, and we expect to have it open by September, and it will be. It actually will be open. If it wasn't for COVID, they probably would have turned it over to us last week. Interestingly enough, as you talk to the superintendent, he said, with some actual real frustration, he said, I've never done a construction project like this where I have not been secure in the building for so long. The front doors to the station are still not there. So at night, there's no door to close, right? Those big, large bays where the fire trucks will come out, of the ambulances will come out, they're still not up. So it's not a secure site, but I will say they've had a security system in place, and they haven't lost one tool. They haven't had any issues. Isn't that fantastic? Even though it hasn't been secure, it has been secured, and they haven't had any problems. But if it wasn't for COVID, the station actually would have been turned over to us probably last week. But the garage doors and a few other items were delayed. And so they are sticking actually to the original schedule and not being ahead of schedule, and that's all right. One thing that is not correct here is that the Intermountain Healthcare Hospital is not opening in the fall of this year like they had originally planned. They also were delayed by COVID. And their COVID delays probably were, at least the report last I had was probably to December, but due to a lot of different factors, they've decided to push until April, so the spring of 21. And so we would have been prepared and capable of providing service in an increased capacity to and from that hospital, but that's delayed, and that's okay. We'll let them get all their needs met, and they'll now be opening here in the spring. On here also, we started a library feasibility study, and that we did do. In this hearing a year ago, we talked about the need to have a feasibility study, which would help us to identify costs, what the structure would look like, and we did that. And we started that and finished that. We gave a report to the council, you know that, in January-ish. And then from there, the library design began. And here we are sitting at this point where we're just continuing in the design. We do expect the library bid, if things continue forward, the library bid probably won't happen in December, but maybe January. But construction would still and could still start in the spring of 21. And then if things continue forward, then the library could be open and available for use in the summer of 2022. I want to just touch on a couple of things. If we can go back to the slide with the this square footage, the sawtooth. Pardon? Oh, no, in Scott's presentation. Oh, yeah, perfect. I think this is a really instructive slide as it shows the square footage, and we are, as we consider the library, the size of the library would be about 30,000 square feet. Now the building that we have been talking about with you isn't 30,000 square feet, it's actually 45,000 square feet. And some have been really confused, and some have actually been frustrated when we use some of those different numbers and they say maybe we're trying to sneak something, and that's certainly not the case. So let me explain what that is. First of all, the library component of this building would be about 30,000 square feet, and that's why we use that number. And it is instructive, I think, for me, interesting for me to note that when we had a library many years ago, when there wasn't as much digital and library space was used differently, we had about a square foot per resident. When I was a kid and I'd go to the library, I would use the microfilm machine, and I would find books and do research that way. I would go and get the book, I would take a study table, and I would throw my materials out, and I would study for a couple of hours or do a research paper or whatever. And the library use, of course, today is much different. But as the library's use has changed, we aren't saying, and with this proposal, let's go back to, say, a 0.88 or even a 1 square foot per resident. But with this one today, it would be at 0.67. And frankly, for today, 2020, or let's say for 2022, that square footage is too big. But it's not too big for 20 years from now, 15 years from now, 10 years from now. It would be, I think, inappropriate of us to build something that was just perfect for today's size only, not allowing for any growth. We know we're growing, and so to build it just perfect for today would be, I think, a derelict of our responsibilities. And so it does provide for growth, but it doesn't go back even to where we were in 1998 or certainly back in the 60s. It goes up to 2/3 of a square foot per, and then it will go down. And who knows what our population will be as fast as it grows. Our community development department tells us that if our current trends continue, which they've done well, they've been pretty consistent for the last 10 years, we could be at 70,000 residents by the year 2050. And that's amazing. And that's something that may cause some people some angst. But that's certainly what's happening along the Wasatch Front in Utah. And some of that's internal growth and some of that's in migration. But as we grow, this library will provide space for that growth. And it's, I think, important to understand the utilization of the library will change. And it may not be all just books, but the ability to gather, as Scott talked about, will be very important in that new library. All right, let's look at the aerial map. Ooh, just do it for me. Yeah, thanks. So some will ask, where is the library going to be? Last year in this hearing, we talked about how we were working on, and I wished that I could announce that it was going to be in this location. But today I can announce that we do own this property right here. The city purchased this property, and the city has purchased these properties right here to put the library in this space and to have parking in this space combined with the Thurber School. And it's not new news today. It's, of course, 8 or 10 years old, or 8 or 10 months old now, but from our last Truth and Taxation hearing, we couldn't say that with a surety, and today that we can. We did purchase that church building. They are using it, I think, through the end of this month, and then we will take possession of it in September. So that's where it would go, and we'd combine it with the parking lot of the city office building. Now, what about that remaining 15,000 square feet? I said that the library was going to be 30, but the building would be about 45,000 square feet, and I think it's important that we understand what that is for. Today, in the city office building that we currently reside in, with many of our city functions, if you go in there and walk around and visit offices, there are a lot of people in a lot of different spaces. Our city council chambers is significantly undersized for the functions that the city has. And we feel that in meetings like this, and we feel that in other meetings like planning commission meetings and the like. And so this building will have probably our most woefully sized and woefully used space is our finance offices, and then the council chambers. So this building would have new offices for those finance offices and for the city council to meet in, so public space for the city council. That will free up about 1/3 of a floor on the Thurber School. Well, actually, with what's in the basement, it'll actually free up about a floor. And so it will allow the Thurber School offices to spread out a little bit, give us room for growth, which gives us time in the Thurber School space for growth, which is important. And then it does give us the ability to use this library building for other offices. We've talked about a lot of different ways to utilize the old library building, and presently in discussions with the council, the discussions have focused on let's keep it and potentially use it for offices. It is not good office space for a lot of public interaction because of the parking situation, but we do have some uses where there is little interaction with the public, but people need offices, and that would be a great place for them. Employees can walk from the side parking and things like that rather than the public, right? So we plan on using that for some office spaces, and then there may be some future uses that you decide you want to do. But in the meantime, we'll have that for some additional growth for employees, and that will be a good asset for us to continue to use. All right, lastly, I want to just touch on, I think I can go backward. I figured out how to go backward, so that's good. I'll just touch on this slide again. Kent, I think, did a great job of discussing property taxes, but it's important that as people consider what we're talking about here tonight, on their property tax notice, they were told that the Spanish Fork City was considering raising the property tax 32%. And 32. And in that number, a lot of times people will assume or apply that percent to the whole. And when they do that, they get an incorrect or an inaccurate number. And so I just wanted to make sure that we focus on what it is we're talking about here tonight, that red portion of the pie. And then if you will advance to whatever was after this one, there is one that shows kind of the change, yeah. I'm going to now maybe talk about a little bit different number, a little bit lower number. When we put out the notice to Utah County, we have to put that notice out in mid-June. And when we do that, we need to give them a number that we cannot go beyond. So our notice is for, in Kent's language, that 12.5, that 0.001250. That number is a good number for us where we knew that with that number and what we're considering, we wouldn't need any more. But since we turned that number into the county, we also knew that we would be able to do some refining. We also knew that we'd be getting some updates from our construction team on what the cost would be. And that number of, I'll just refer to it as 1250, 1250, equates to that 32% increase that was noticed with property taxes. What we would like to present to you today, and the council's heard this, but I'll give this to the public, as we've refined the efforts with our construction team over the last almost 2 months, that number doesn't need to be 1250. It can go as low as 12, which is an increase of about 26.6%, or about 26 2/3%, instead of that 32. Decreases the revenue that would be generated by about $145,000. But with the refining that we've been able to do in the budget process, since we had to turn that number in and had our conversation with the council in June, that's a number that we're very comfortable with presenting to you today. So instead of 0.001250 or 1250, we would present to you that number of just 0.0012. And instead of, I can't remember the number you had, it was like $54 a month, or sorry, $54 a year on the average home. It equates to the $43.87 on the average home. 52. Yeah, 52, sorry. So that's the number that we would present to you as we move forward. Mayor, council, any questions for me, Scott, Kent, before we complete this portion of the presentation?
I don't have any. Okay. So, all right, this is a public hearing, and so I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Scopes. We'd like to hear from everybody. Let me set a few ground rules. You have 3 minutes. I think we've got a timer on the clock. So please come up, express your concerns, your comments, and if someone said what you were going to say, please don't repeat it. You know, one time we can get it. So, but we want to hear from everybody that would like to come and talk. So make sure you state your name, and when you see your time's up, please stop. Thank you. Whoever wants to go, you can go to the mic.
We made a motion.
We already-
Second, but we need all
Oh.
to say aye.
Oh, excuse me. We made a motion, had a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, there we go. Sorry. All right. Anybody that'd like to come and talk about this, you're sure welcome. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Beck, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. What do you need?
I'm guessing that they were just nervous.
Did anybody want to get up and talk? I believe I asked.
You did ask.
That's what the public hearing. You get up there and you can talk all you want, and we'll wait till everybody's talked, and then we'll go out of public hearing, and then we will answer your questions. So is that what you'd like to do? So wait, let's go back into public
Motion to
hearing.
go back into public hearing?
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, come on up.
Well, I just want to say,
But please state your name.
oh, excuse me.
That's right.
My name is William Brenton. I want to say thank you for the enlightening presentation today. It was very helpful. While I am very fiscally conservative and I don't like to see taxes go up, the things that were discussed today make sense. And it seems like the entire team has been very prudent in the approach that has been taken. So I appreciate that. I guess the question I have is, these increases, I guess, are forever, which I'd like to understand. You know, if they are trying to understand if they pay for operating the library, paying for the building, do they continue forever? That's what I'd like to understand a little bit better. And then, let's see, what else do I want to say? I guess that's, oh, the other thing, sorry. Just trying to understand what's next. You know, we saw the plan up till this point. Is there another 5 years of increases coming, or help us understand what the future looks like? It helps it, at least it would help me to digest these increases now if I'm knowing like, okay, well, this is it for a while. You know, we're gonna pause. Just what's coming next?
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
William.
great questions. Anyone else? Don't be shy or bashful. All right, thank you.
What? I agree. If it's about as nervous-wracking.
There's only 1 million people watching, so you'll be
I
all right.
remember once, though, you were the Grinch,
I was.
so I think you're okay.
I can handle Grinch. And hopefully we get to bring that back some year. I'd love to have that.
Thank you.
Anyway, well, my name is Joe Broderick, and I've been here in this neighborhood for many years now. My question is, are we going to raise that new building that we have acquired, or are we and build a new building there to meet our needs? Will there be what kind of event space will there be in that new building? Will we be able to have larger events, such as maybe an orchestra performance occasionally? I don't know. All I know is that we're spending a lot of money, and but I don't know how much, what we're getting for her, for this bang on the buck. Because these tax rates notoriously don't go up, and your timing is also not very good here. The county's going up 66% on their portion, and which will make your pie chart skew your pie chart there, because you're using, historical information and it's changed. So that's basically where I'm at,
Okay.
and
Great question. Anyone else? There you go.
My name is Cheryl Call, and because you have so many new people moving in, the amount of taxes that are coming in are increasing dramatically. Is it really prudent that we have to have these kind of increases? And also with this COVID going on, and people are losing jobs and people are without jobs, is it really a prudent thing to do?
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Not too many people left here to ask. Going once? Going twice? I would entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilman Beck, second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Seth, are you going to answer those questions?
Thanks, Mayor. I will do my best. Scott will come up and actually, I'll have him try to address Mr. Broderick's comment or question about what are we getting in the space. I think it's a fantastic question. We're continuing to work on the design inside, but he can give certainly a feel of what is being considered. Mr. Brenton asked some great questions, I think, for us to consider, and we've certainly been talking about some of these. Are these increases forever? So we look at these increases in two ways, and to the resident, it's not felt this way, but this is the way we look at it. One, the portion that we've raised for the public safety building is one portion of it, and then the portion that we're raising for the library building is another portion. So I'm going to talk about those two unique or individual parts. The increases that we have considered over the last 3 years, holding the rate for public safety, I would say probably is forever. That's not something that will come down in terms of the revenue generated. The rate, as Kent discussed in his presentation, the rate actually goes down every year. And the amount of money that we get from you for that public safety actually goes down as more people move in. So to Ms. Call's comment, as more residents do come in, 2 years ago we raised it for the fire station. I want to say it was like 50 cents. Well, that was for the library. Yeah, I'm going to say it was about 50 cents. I'm making that number up because I'm shooting a little bit from the hip. But, and that generated about $150,000. But today, to generate that same $150,000, you and I are only paying about 40 cents, just 2 years later. And that's what happens with growth. So for the public safety part of the equation, I would say that, yeah, it's probably, that increase is probably forever. Although the rate does come down with growth, that portion of it is forever. The library portion is to construct the building only. So you also asked, is that for O&M and things like that? This is only to construct the building. So the O&M will come from growth in other areas. We do see, of course, a sales tax growth and growth in a few other areas, and those revenue sources will be used to operate the library and other things like that. So will the library portion of the property tax come off in 20 years when we're done, or 22 years, whatever the timetable is for that bond? Will that come off? It certainly could. Now, you, and I think you guys know this, but I'll say this as if you don't, you cannot bind the council 20 years from now and say, in the year 2040, you will do this. That's actually not legal. You can't do that. And so will it come off? I can't tell you that it will, but it certainly can, because that is a capital project and not an ongoing expense. So in the year 2040-ish, when that bond is paid off, the city council will have at that time the opportunity to take that off. And I don't know what they will do, but they will have that option. I think, did I get all of your questions?
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, let me grab my crystal ball. Do you have one with your Grinch costume?
I don't.
You guys got, I don't know if anybody remembers him coming into council dressed as the Grinch in July. So we have, right, our community theater in July. Normally we have our plays, and a lot of times we'll have them come in costumes and such. He was the Grinch, and I don't really know Mr. Broderick at all, but I remember that he was the Grinch. And he showed up, and I thought it was pretty cool. So anyways, I do remember that.
I come into the city council as the cop, and when we did.
That was, I don't remember
Singing in
that.
the Rain.
Oh, okay.
I've come in various characters through the years.
That's awesome.
So is this
He
the
really
real
doesn't know
Yeah.
who he is.
Is this the real
Today
you
he
tonight?
is acting the part of Joe Broderick.
It is a different costume, yes.
So maybe to be serious for a second, we have at this moment no plans to have further increases in the property tax. Now that doesn't mean that something may not change or something may change in the future, but we did have a 3-year plan for the Station 62. This is the 3rd year for that, and we are done. We have what we believe is sufficient revenue for the operations of that, as well as to change other service levels at Station 61. And so there is no plan to raise property taxes for that next year. We did have a 3-year plan, and I think this is worth highlighting. Kent mentioned this. We did have a 3-year plan for the library, and this is year 2. But when we started to calculate, is there a savings doing 2 years, or doing it smaller amounts over 3 years versus the 2 years, it actually came out to be almost exactly the same. No, there is no savings. And depending on what growth factors happen, it actually might save a little bit more, save money over time. So we sped up the year 3 and brought that into year 2, if that makes sense. And so at this moment, as we put the budget together for next year, there is no plan like we have talked in the past of 3-year plans or whatever. There's no plan to do that next year. That is satisfied, if you will, with what we're talking about today. All right. Mr. Broderick, are we going to raise the building? Are you talking about the church that is there? Yes. Great. Okay. Yes, we are going to raise that building. It is not R-A-Z-E, raise that building. The building is
It's old.
very old, and in fact, its current owner, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, asked us to strongly consider the raising of it for that. They really like the idea of us purchasing it, having purchased it. They love their properties turning into community uses. They were great with that, but they actually wanted us to raise it as well. The layout is very inefficient for a library as well. So we plan to raise the building. I do love that word. We plan to raise the building. It could be taken down this fall or next spring. The construction company has talked about tearing it down this fall before the weather gets bad, and then making the space clean such that when they're ready to start construction, they would just do that in the spring. But so that building would go down. And then I'll let Scott, when I'm finished here, I'll let him come up and talk about the different spaces. And then, Ms. Call, I don't know that I can really answer your question. I think those are just great kind of philosophical questions that you asked. With the new people coming in, tax revenues increasing, is this needed? As we have walked through our evaluation of how to fund the construction of this building and how to improve the level of service with the library, the decision, at least historically, has been made that all residents will use or have the ability to use the new building. Let's share that. Growth will certainly pay for it. And here's something that's interesting that happens when we raise property taxes today, and this will set kind of the high water mark. Our rate will go down, and the pie will grow every year. Now, when I say the pie will grow every year, what I'm talking about is today there's a farm field over there, and tomorrow there's going to be houses. And that farm field, let's say it generated $1,000 in property taxes that came to Spanish Fork City. But then the 30 homes in that particular farm field each generate, well, that's not true. I can't even use that $1,000 because that's way too high, isn't it? That farm field maybe brought in $100 to the city in property tax revenue. And each of those now 30 homes might bring in about $200 in property tax revenue. That growth will lower what all of us will pay. And over in the Canyon Creek area, there is a field that existed yesterday. It's currently under construction, and a Hobby Lobby is going in there. I don't know if you guys knew that. Maybe some of you will care about that. My wife is super excited, and when that Hobby Lobby opens up, they will put stuff inside of that store. That is new growth, where once there was a field that generated very little property tax because the land was somewhat unproductive. Now it's a building that has value, and so that is growth. The amount that is raised with what we've talked about today, if we assume consistent growth at about 5%, which is really conservative, certainly doable in terms of traditional growth, the average resident will pay over the life of this about $2.45 a year. $2.45 a month on that average home. And today we've talked about a $3 and whatever. And so that number just comes down and comes down. At the end of it, an average is that middle point. So by the end of year 20, the amount that the resident is paying in that particular year per month for this library is about $1, maybe $1.10. Another way to look at it about the construction of the building on the average home will be, in that scenario, will be about $600. It'll cost the residents about $620 to construct the building over the 20 years. And I think it's important to note, one thing that we talked about in these times with COVID and recession, if we continue in some kind of a recession, and the experts, as they talk, are certainly mixed on if we're in a recession or not. I think we are headed still into one, if we aren't in one yet. But it's a great time for us to actually consider something like this, despite the negative that is to raise property tax. We expect to get an interest rate of about 2%, which we can't construct with inflation. We can't beat that amount. 2% is an amazing interest rate that benefits the residents of the community. That is certainly a COVID-affected number. When we started talking about this a year ago, we were using interest rates that were great at around 3.25. And we expect somewhere around 2. We just did a bond and got 1.63%, which is just amazing. This one probably won't be quite as good, but still amazing at about 2%. And as Jared discussed with the construction, for the last 8 years or so, we have been victims of tremendous construction growth. The cost of construction has just been incredible. And when the community grows and we have to fix traffic problems or whatever, we can't wait until the economy says it's really good. And so we have to fix them. And the cost of those construction projects have been incredible. And if construction costs have at least flattened and maybe gone down, this is a great opportunity for us to build that library and at least save over what it could have cost. Now, we're still spending money, so it's like you come home from the store and say, look at how much money I saved, and you've got all those bags. I get the irony of what I'm saying there, but if you have to buy those items and you can buy them at 5% less or 10% less, then at least you are actually saving over what you could have spent. So that does give us a really good opportunity today. And then maybe the last consideration, if we do move into a recession, that this would be a good stimulus project, where it's one of those shovel-ready projects that could pump millions of dollars into the local economy with a good job for a season. And that's another great consideration. So I think with that, Mayor, I've done my best to address those questions.
Right.
Thank you for that question. I love it. And it plays into, in response to his question that was, is there going to be gathering space for the community? I talked a lot about how the library brings people together, and we don't see this new building as being just a gathering place for the library, but it really is a community gathering space. And as we've gone through the design process over the last 6, 7, 8 months, that has been on the front of our minds as we think about this, is how do we use this space to gather the community and not just individuals may be coming to pay a utility bill or people coming to use the library. So one component that we are including on that second floor by the city council chambers, there is a large multi-purpose room. The square footage, last calculation I saw was about 2,100 square feet, with seating that could accommodate, I think, 150 or so people in there. I don't know whether or not it could accommodate an orchestra plus the risers that are in there, but certainly would be a great space for residents, for the community to use, for community events, for city events. Certainly it will be available for individuals to reserve. Yeah, so there will be a city council chambers as well, and we recognize that city council chambers isn't used every single day, right? There are opportunities and times where the council chambers sit vacant. Not so much right now, we use it a lot for meetings, but we've designed the new council chambers such that it could be used for other purposes so that it's not just sitting vacant when we don't have meetings like this or planning commission. So a couple large spaces, certainly that multi-purpose room that's 2,000 square feet plus that could be used for a variety of events, in addition to the program rooms that are dedicated for library events and whatnot. So,
Great, thank you. Any other comments, discussions?
We just need to go out of public hearing, so I make a motion to go out of public hearing.
Got a motion by Councilman Beck, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're out of public hearing. Now, any comments, discussions, thoughts?
I have a couple. I'll go first. First of all, I liked how Seth addressed that this will be a shovel-ready project. My son got a job just in June with a company here in Spanish Fork, welding, and he came home one day and told me he was welding the fence up at the All Abilities Park. And I liked that the company he's working for is here in Spanish Fork. He's in Spanish Fork. He's getting checks, spending it here in Spanish Fork, so it just works perfect hand in hand when it's a shovel-ready project here in town, and I think that library will do that for a good 18-month period. The mayor and I have sat on this committee since last October, every other week for several hours, and we've really put a lot of time and energy into it. We appreciate the staff's time and insight, and I appreciate you being here and asking such great questions. I don't think we have any plans to do anything else right now, but next summer the swimming pool will be tore down, so it kind of depends on the public what you come to the city and want from us as well. So I think this is a good move. I think that's all I have. I'm happy with it, and I'm happy, Seth, too, coming down from the 32% down to the 26. So thanks for working out and crunching those numbers.
I had a piggyback on what Stacy says. I appreciated her. We don't have any plans for anything else. You know that we did the bond on the ballot and asked the public if they wanted to build the Life Center 5 or 6 years ago, and that was voted down. So we don't have plans to build a new pool or rec center, but again, like she says, a future council could have different plans and that could change. But as of right now, we don't have plans to do that. And so I think that kind of goes to Cheryl's question of the future, right? What's next? What is next? And one of the things that I've loved about staff and working with the staff is our rates, whether it be from cable TV to sewer rates. One of the opportunities I have at the state level is sitting on the Water Quality Board, and we have municipalities come to the board at the state level asking for help because they have a project with their sewer treatment facility, and their sewer rates are about to go from $25 to $60 just because of what I consider poor planning. So it's really hard for me to sit on this board, and I know how our staff at Spanish Fork does in their planning and looking at future. One other example, in my day job, I am an insurance agent. And today I helped an individual that lives in Payson who all of a sudden their flood maps changed. And they didn't know, but they got a notice from their mortgage company saying, you need to purchase flood insurance. And it's $600 that they did not plan on as a family. I have friends that live along the river, just on the other side of the sports park here, and they are not in a flood plain because of a lot of good effort from our engineering department and working with FEMA and the flood maps. And in my opinion, have saved residents that maybe live along this river frontage hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's my segue into the fire station, and I don't hear negative comments about the fire station. I think everyone agrees that we need a fire station, but what's interesting is if you live 5 miles away from a existing fire station, your protection class is typically a 10. You might not have a fire hydrant, water source. So my parents that live in Lake Shore, they are a 10, and they pay roughly triple the homeowner's insurance that I pay. You know, I'm roughly $500 a year, they're $1,500. This new fire station will allow the protection class hopefully to change for a lot of our homeowners that live in that area. And as that protection class changes, I look at that as potentially, you know, could save $50 a year, $100 a year on your homeowner's insurance. And I think that's cool that we're able to maybe collect that as a homeowner, or even if you own the home and rent to renters. And so those were some of the thoughts that were swirling. I really appreciate staff. I did have a conversation with a couple of residents this week that it does sort of feel like this is backwards. We're asking you to come and give public input tonight when we've been working on this project for so very long, so many years, right? And so for me to vote no against a fire station that's going to open in a month, well, there's no other way to pay for that, right? And so this is the process that the legislature has put in place for us to have the public hearing tonight and the truth in taxation. But being involved and being here and communicating with the mayor and the council, we're always open to emails and phone calls and face-to-face, whatever we can do, because we really appreciate people being involved and being part of the process. That's my, maybe more than 2 cents, but
Yes, it's
thanks,
a lot
Mayor.
more than 2 cents, but you did well.
I just have one comment. Appreciate all of your questions and concerns. Ms. Call, your questions on, is it prudent? This is a conversation I had recently with a citizen, and this is something that as a council we've looked at and talked about, as Seth mentioned, changing the 3-year model to a 2-year model to try to capture any savings. Right now it is a very tenuous time with COVID, people losing jobs, people unsure of how things are. Unfortunately, this process had started a year, 2 years prior to this year, and unfortunately it's one of those things that you can't just hit the brakes or tap the brakes on as far as stopping these projects that are under construction. As a school teacher, I look at it. We have the stereotypic word problems that we didn't like growing up. You know, a train in New York leaves at a certain time, and a train in Los Angeles, and at what point will they meet? And I don't mean this to cast aspersions at anyone, but the train in this plan for the fire station and the library has been on the track for some time now. Timing-wise, and I know the Facebook Live, some have mentioned, well, it's just not great timing because NEBO is proposing a tax hike, Utah County proposing a tax hike, and I don't mean it to make light of it, but those are trains that have left their respective cities, using that word problem, long after this train and plan has already been on the track. And so unfortunately when they meet, it doesn't work for any of us really well. That's one thing that I've learned being on the city council that I truly appreciate is these increases, or any increase, whether it's this year or in 2040 or what have you, affect us just as much as it affects everyone sitting on that side of these tables or in the cameras. We pay those same rates, and for each of our family situations, it may be easy one year, hard the next year. But that was, again, I don't mean to cast aspersions, just so that those that are watching on TV know and understand that, that this train has been out there going for some time. Unfortunately, it does meet these other 2 trains of tax hikes, but unfortunately there's not much that we can do about that because they've put their trains on that track at a date different from ours. But I can honestly say that the city council and the mayor, city staff have done everything as prudent as possible, given these projects, to make the increases as painless as possible on us, due to the fact that we all pay into it, and understanding, as was already explained, that over time we will pay less for this infrastructure that as a community we feel is important. So again, I can tell you a lot of care and effort has gone into this. Things are not raised willy-nilly, but I do agree, timing-wise, it looks, it is a very difficult and trying time for all of us that have either fixed incomes or incomes we're not sure of, or what have you. But just appreciate the planning foresight that Spanish Fork City has gone through, and the planning to do so as judiciously as possible.
Can I add 2 cents?
Well, not as long as it's not same 2
Not
cents that Brandon
6 cents? All right, it won't be Brandon's 2 cents.
Okay.
Echo a little bit what everybody said about appreciate everybody's insight and the public's insight for sure. This is not a light subject. I think if you were to paint everybody on this current council and the mayor with a brush as far as what direction they might lean in fiscal policy, you would probably call us fiscal conservatives. We don't, when we talk about funds in this city, it truly is what can we do to stretch those funds just as far as possible to avoid tax. Really, this whole project, and again, I appreciate everybody's hard work for many years on both of these projects, but I break it out into 2 projects and what those mean to me, and maybe my personal situation, as I know that's kind of what we all relate to. First, the Fire Station 62. Ms. Call, Cheryl would be no stranger to this, living on Highway 6, and myself as well, is that new station will certainly allow our first responders to get to things on Highway 6, and as far as they have to go up Highway 6 within a matter of minutes that truly do count. Again, growing up there, and I know I'm not unique in this, I know we've all seen this or heard about it on the news, but the traffic that goes up Highway 6 and what that means really does truly make a difference in the life and death of people. And so I'm grateful that not only the very financial aspect that Brandon brought up, it is a physical aspect of, I do believe it won't be very long that that's housed, and we see lives saved in a matter of minutes, especially up the canyon in Highway 6. My library aspect of it, again, breaking it out into the 2 subjects that I think Seth detailed really well, and is detailed to us as a council ongoing to help us understand it as we discussed it with citizens. And so these are discussions that I've had with citizens ongoing that have asked me about it. The library story, and I think most people could probably recall this, one of my first meetings being elected in 2014 to the council was our library director back then, who since retired, Pam, brought it up in a meeting that we talk about the budget going forward for the next year, and said we need to start talking about a new library. And I did hold up my cell phone, the iPhone. I don't know what generation this is, but it was a generation ago that I said, I got the library right here, right? I got Google, I got everything right here. She proceeded to literally school me on what the library was for our community, showed me similar numbers to what Scott has shown today of what that means to our community, the attendance that is to our community, not just in good times economically, but even more so in tough economic times and what that means to our children and our community. And since I've been converted to the library, again, karma has a funny way of doing it too, because it brought it up to me in about this time last year, in being the 40-year-old that decides to change careers. And could have been as easy as buying a convertible car. That's what a midlife crisis usually is. But I decided to change a career and take some tests that were harder than I ever imagined any college test being, to get licensed with the SEC and be a broker and everything. And Brandon can attest to this, because he saw me quite a bit last summer and allowed me to use some of his office space. But I will tell you, spending time in our library and the Springville Library had a direct effect on my ability to comprehend, to study, and just my mental state overall. So I used it. I don't remember too much using it as a kid like Mayor does, but I used it as a 40-year-old professional changing careers, and it directly attributed to me being able to make that change. The second library story is simply that we held multiple QPR classes over at the Springville Library. Tough in our current space at our current library, so the QPR classes we did hold were in the City Hall, which was different. The part that I didn't get holding them over at the Springville Library, QPR stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer, and that is talking about mental health and suicide awareness. When we held those meetings, Susan Chapman, my wife, Bronco Hunter, and others from the city, when they held them in the Springville Library, the place was full to the capacity of how many people could attend, which is about 30. And it was amazing to attend those and see afterwards the kids come in to meet their parents, or the parents go out to meet their kids at the library, because they were out there reading books or on the computer or on the game console, whatever was in the library at that time, for them to be entertained, if you will, while their parents were discussing some pretty heavy topics. And so again, it brought to me a more attributable component of what the library is. And so again, for all the good work that's went into it and the planning of it, I certainly know the aspect of bringing it home and making it a reality for our community is going to be something that will live long beyond this decision, long beyond maybe many of us. So for those two reasons, specifically attributed to me and my situation, that's why I appreciate the conservative nature of this, but also what I consider a necessary nature of it. And so that's why I'd be in favor of it, Mayor. Thanks.
Right. Well, I echo what everyone else has said here tonight. A library is a gathering place for a city, for a community. Library that we have now, my grandfather was on the library board that built that building. So you can tell how long ago, because I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So that's how long ago that library has been in use, and we've used it well. It served the city well, but as we're growing, you can tell that we've outgrown it, and so we have a need. Anytime that we have to build buildings like that and have to use tax money to do it, it's hard, but it'll be appreciated. And my hat's off to staff. We've gone out and designed a building that will meet our needs. We've been really frugal about what we put into it, and we've gone out and got the best rates that we can get to save people, the citizens, money. Over a long term, we're going to save millions of dollars with this interest rates. And so you got to look at the big picture, you got to look down the road, and that's what we've been doing here. And kudos to those people who put, the staff who put a lot of this effort, and to the citizens who put a lot of input into this library. You know, there's a lot of people that wants this library, have put a lot of input into it. We've had open houses about it, and you can come and express your opinions for or against, and we've listened to it. And that's, I want the people to realize that we just don't take these projects and rubber stamp them. You know, there's a lot of thought and concern and a lot of effort goes into these things, and then we try to make the best decision we can make with all the information that we have. And so, again, thank everyone that came tonight and sat through this and listened to what we had to say and gave us their input, and all those who gave us their input before, so we could go forth with this library. So with that, if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion.
There's a resolution number.
See that? Yeah, that's what that number right there is. Thanks, Kent. I'd entertain a motion on resolution number 2020.
I move that we approve resolution number 2020, adopting the final tax rate for the 2020 tax year
At what?
Want to specify the rate?
at 12. 12 mils. Is that what it is, Kent?
You understand what that was?
Yes, got it.
Got it, okay. Got a motion by Councilmember Beck.
Second.
A second by Councilman Scobes. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
That passes. Okay.
I move we adjourn.
Oh, no. We got new business.
Item B. I don't have a B on my paper.
Hey, Dale, will you get a price on it? While you're here.
Now we got to,
Yeah.
Oh, is that all? It's a quickie.
yeah.
They're all
Oh,
over
so the
here.
resolution.
When Kent says it's a quick one. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Like I mentioned before, now we'll adopt our budget now that we know what our property tax rate is. We will adjust it. This is the budget that's presented in this has the 1250 number in there, and we'll adjust it down to the 12.0012 in that budget. I'm just going to walk you through a couple of these. So this started back in May. We've had a public hearing on June 2nd. Gave input. The budget was modified and been slightly modified. It's even since the June 2nd, but not anything of a material amount. Today's the Truth in Taxation hearing, and tonight we're also going to finalize and adopt the budget with the new certified tax rate. So it's not a public hearing for the budget. We've already had that. This is the formatting on the screen. We'll just keep going. Total budget is $123,678,179. There's three different categories. You can see the different types of budget funds we have. We have the general fund and enterprise funds, which are are the utilities, and then we have miscellaneous funds, which are capital projects and debt service. Here are some of the totals for the general fund, which provides most of the services for the city, from police, fire, ambulance, cemetery, parks, fairgrounds, swimming pool, golf course. Those funds, those services are all run out of the general fund. These are the enterprise funds, which I stated were all enterprise funds. Draw your attention to the highlighted one is airport. Airport is moving into an enterprise fund from the general fund, now being accounted for like a business out for the airport. These are the miscellaneous funds that I'd mentioned, the different capital project funds, and the RDA funds, and also the RAP tax special revenue funds. Here's some of the list of some of the major projects looking forward to completion and during 2021's budget. Finish up Station 62, finish up the All Abilities Park, issuing new bonds for the new sewer plant, which we're just finalizing those in the next week. Looking forward possibly in the next couple months to issuing some water bonds, issuing the bonds for the library, and also completing some major street repairs. Top of Center Street was talked about, some trails along the river bottoms, Poplar Lane, roundabouts, and the improvements on Canyon Road. There's also funds the city received having to deal with the COVID-19 funds. We got just under $3 million to help the city's impact on how to respond to and to protect our citizens and our employees. Those funds will be expended. We have until December to spend those funds, or else we turn those funds back.
That might be extended, that we found out today.
Oh, that's news. That's good. Again, the budget we have for this year's budget is $123 million. That's how it's broke up, and we'll leave it with that as far as for the council. If you have any questions about the budget, it's slightly changed a little bit from June 2nd, but not at a material amount that to worry about on the detail of it. So 123 million.
Right. Any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the fiscal year 2021 budget as proposed.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now,
I move we adjourn.
got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Scope. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you once again for everyone being here. We appreciate your input, and thank you for being here.
Troubles, all these lovers got you losing control. You're like a drug to me, a luxury, my sugar and gold. I want your love and your affection, you're a highway to hold. But you don't even know. I can make your hands clap. I can make your hands clap.